Welcome back to our video series of 0 to 60 in M365, where we get up to speed in administrating and employing zero trust and best practice within our Microsoft 365 environment. In our last video, we went over user management within the admin portal. And in this video, we're going to continue on within the admin portal to cover off a few more areas before we get specific into the IAM and endpoint management in the subsequent portals. So let's get into it. Defensive insights within a compressed format. So we can see here we're in the admin portal now, and just to cover off a little bit of a refresher, on the dashboard we've got our users. We can click a user to get a right pane to punch out to get more controls for that specific user. We can also go back and click on our leftmost pane under users and get more context driven areas for the users like active users, contacts, guest users, and deleted users. Now still within user management is teams and groups. So you've got a few areas here where you can actually control the teams and groups. So your teams and Microsoft 365 groups, distribution list, and your security groups. We're going to cover more of this in the specific portal, admin portal, which is going to be Entra. Since Entra is IAM, Identity Access Management, that's going to be where you're going to really get into the meat and potatoes of managing your identities. However, just know that you do have some control here within the admin center. In here as well, you've got your shared mailboxes. At times, I've found myself administrating it from here, but generally you want to use the context-driven admin portal. And in this case, a shared mailbox is going to come under the Exchange admin portal. So that's where you can go to create your shared mailboxes and to manage them. If you're in a pinch, however, they're there as well. Marketplace is the area where we can choose our license and buy more license for different products that Microsoft offers. And then billing is in relation to that, the products that you have, but within the context of billing and more information around, your information for when billed, where you're going to send the receipt, what card are you using, the like. Next is setup. Now setup is really handy. Setup is a place where Microsoft allows curated wizards for setting up different parts within your Microsoft 365 tenant. And some of them can be around the things that we cover. So if we go to stay secure, there may be a few areas that we will cover within this. But you've also got other things like build your brand, create a branded business email, save time with a template, let your customers book online. And these are all things that you can click get started, and it'll take you through, and it shows you about the allotted time. You can talk to an expert if you want to, and you can click start, and it will really just give you a wizard to follow through. So I like this area as the last thing to do. So you put in all the grunt work, you fill out the different administrative templates and policies and follow videos and do Microsoft Learn. And then you come here and you check, okay, what things haven't I done and what can I do that I haven't thought about? As you scroll down on that page, it shows you the expanded view of that as well. And you can see some of these have been completed. But for instance, at the time of recording this video, deploying a conditional access policy via a template, by the sounds of it, has not been completed. But that's something that you can click on and have a look, adding pronouns, blocking the use of Internet Explorer in your organization. These are all options that you have. Now going back to our left pane here, we can click the show all button and we get an expanded view of what options we have. And you can see there's a whole lot more here. So if we go back to the top, we've got our users, we've covered devices, yes, teams and groups, yes, and then roles. And then within the roles, we can see the individual roles that we can assign users. And if we click on one, we get more information around that role assignment, who it's assigned to, and the permissions that that role gives. And then next is administrative units. Now, this is not something that I've used in the past. However, you can see here by their description that Microsoft provides, administrative units let you subdivide your organization into any unit that you want and then assign specific administrators that can only manage that unit. So for example, you can assign the help desk administrator role to a regional support specialist so that they can manage users only within that region. So we're getting more granular on-role assignments is the way that I understand that. Then we have resources. So if we had any rooms and equipment as well as sites, we could do them here. So rooms and equipment, think of that as you may have a meeting room and you want it to be bookable by the calendar. Well, you can add that here. And next you have sites. And within sites, you're going to be seeing the SharePoint sites that are available within your Microsoft tenant. Now, I wouldn't be going here necessarily to add sites and to do any administrating of sites. I'd be going to the SharePoint context specific admin center. Then we're back to marketplace and billing. So next you have support, and in support you have this button that says help and support, which actually just punches out this pane here. And I want to make a note here that this pane is available by clicking the question mark or help icon within most, if not all, of the portals. And the benefit of clicking here as opposed to finding it somewhere else or on a different page is that there are times where it is actually context driven. So it knows what is open on the screen. And you can click this, go through the process of creating a ticket, and it can pre-fill the fields depending on where you are within the admin portal or portals. And that's helpful when you have an issue that is closely related to what you're looking at, so that you don't have to fill out those extra fields. So where possible, use the question mark as opposed to finding another means to get help and support, because it'll fill out those areas where needed. Then on this, you can see any support history and you can search for that. And you can also go down here to use view service requests, and that's going to show previous requests. And then you've got Microsoft Service Support if you needed that as well. Next, we're going to be looking at our settings. So if we punch that open and look at domains, we can see here we have the .on Microsoft domain that's made when you create the tenant. And then you can see the BlueFolder.zip that's been added after. When you add a domain, it's going to ask you to add some domain records. So like your CNAME record and your TXT record to both point to different areas. So like MX record, for instance, is going to point for your emails, but then some of the like TXT records are going to point to prove domain ownership. So you're going to have to do some of those things during making that connection, but it's a wizard and it's pretty easy. On top of that, Microsoft has actually had a relationship made, a business relationship made with GoDaddy, and you can actually buy domains directly through GoDaddy that will come into this tenant, and they've got some licensing that you can buy through there as well. I will give you a little asterisk here to say if they are offering a Microsoft license, just make sure that you check the differences between buying the actual full license through Microsoft and buying it through GoDaddy, because there are different features there. Next is search and intelligence. It's not an area I have touched on much, but definitely go and have a look at that. Then you've got your organization settings. This is the area where we looked at to get our customization of the themes, but you've also got other options around security and privacy and your different services. Then you've got Microsoft 365 backup, integrated apps, Viva, and partner relationships. So partner relationships are handy to know about if you're an MSP or if you are being managed by a different party. So this is the area that you would go to review any partner agreements and see any established or wanting to establish areas where a partner can help administer or provide support for your tenant. So if you're an MSP or MSSP, you're going to have a partner agreement with your client that is showing here, that actually allows for particular roles and access within their tenant from your tenant. If you are the client side, you're going to see it here and you can review that and know what access you have agreed to with partners. Microsoft Edge, this is something we're going to cover in another video, something that's fairly new as well. It allows you to administer and push out different policies for the actual Microsoft Edge browser and the profile of that browser. Then we have our reports. So in a reports, this is really good for like your C-suite, or you need to report to a board to show different metrics against your 365 tenant. So the adoption score shows the adoption against different technologies within Microsoft and within your licensing. And so you can see here, mine's not looking too good, but yours should probably look a lot better in a bigger environment where you're deploying a lot more apps and you have a lot more users using different technologies. But you can see your organization score overall. You can see the peer benchmark to compare to. And if you scroll down, you can see your score components, people experiences, technology experiences. And again, that little chevron there represents the peer benchmark to base off for other people that are within the same organization or size or are similar that Microsoft has you compared to. Then you have your score history, so a trend graph. And on the left-hand side, you have the individual areas, so communication, meetings, content, collaboration, teamwork, mobility, and AI assistant. And if we go to actions, there are more sort of like the setup area wizards that you can follow to do particular actions. So like encouraging people to create files in SharePoint or OneDrive, you can click that and we'll show you about, in this case, creating a message to then help encourage that action. Next is usage under reports, and this is specific to all of the applications within your tenant. So if we went to the browser, we can see a trend graph for the usage against the day. Now, one thing to note here is that by default, the username UPN that ties to these logs is going to be obfuscated, and it can actually be clear text, and you can turn that back if you need to have that log, but you need to also look at the security implications therein. All right, now if we go back to home, punch this back out, we can see under reports, there's organizational messages. And so this is the area where we can either create a message and send it to the organization wide, or we can review messages that have been sent through, say, actions taken in the adoption score. So if we go back here, encouraging people to create a message, we would, if we continued with that, be able to see that under organizational messages and see what has been sent and review as such. Next is health. So going back to our left pane, we've got our service health. So we can look at the overall health of what Microsoft is working on and the subsequent service status for the different subparts of your Microsoft tenant, things that you may be interacting with. This is really handy if you are in a service role, whether you are the technician of an internal team or you're an MSP that is helping to administer other businesses' Microsoft tenants. You can go here, should there be a ticket, should there be an incident, to check that it isn't something that is happening from your intervention or their system, but it is actually just a Microsoft interruption. And you can see the active issues and click into that and get a little bit more information about what's happening that you can then share with the subsequent person that you are helping via a ticket or email. Next is Windows release health. I really like this. This is something I found more recently, and it shows Windows 11 updates and Windows Server and the like, Windows OS updates in general, and will show any version releases and whether there's issues with those releases and more information about it. And this helps if you sit in the seat of patch management and you are administrating when to push out updates, and if an update's faulty, what to do in that case. So you can go here, have a look at the active and recently known issues within a release of Windows, and you can then mitigate that as needed. So for instance, we can see snipping tool might stop responding and cause issues on non-primary displays. That's been confirmed, and we can click there again and see the user impact and the latest message. And that can help to alleviate the time we take to investigate an issue But also, in a sense, if you're driven by KPIs and closing a ticket, that's going to get us to closing a ticket a lot quicker than having to go around and figure it out ourselves. So that's really handy. Message Center is going to be the area in which we see any high-level overview or plan change that's going to affect us for specific Microsoft products. Next is product feedback. If we wanted to give any product feedback, we'd be able to see it here. Network connectivity, threats and antivirus, although we would be using our security admin portal to get more enriched view. And then software updates, where we would be using Intune, since we're going to be doing endpoint management through Intune. So now that we've covered off all of that, we can see the last few things that are available to us in the admin center is actually links to other admin centers. And you can see here the ones that are pinned by default are security, compliance, Microsoft Intune, identity, Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, and Power Platform. But if we click all admin centers, there are more options. So for instance, Viva Engage, Universal Print, and Search and Intelligence, Office Configuration as well. So this is going to conclude this video. Please continue on to the next video, in which we're going to get into our Entra Identity admin portal and talk more about IAM, Identity Access Management. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please be sure to tell us about what you liked of this video, what you disliked. Any feedback is warranted and welcome, and any areas that you'd like to see more information on, more focus on. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.